Am I in the square?
In the center?
Yeah, am I in the center?
Yes.
Okay. Now remember, I'm going to be down for a couple of seconds, hopefully, and then I'm going to come up hard and fast. Just don't follow me, okay? Just keep the camera steady, okay? Okay. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Nathan, and on this planet we send it. And what we're going to be getting in today, we're going to be getting into my family's summer vacation, where we all hopped into the Mojave and we headed around the Sierra Nevadas, quite literally around the Sierra Nevadas, up the west side, cut over Tahoe, and down the east side and back to San Diego. So it was a pretty long but absolutely scenic trip. And I'm going to be honest, this trip was actually inspired by two things. Number one, my wife's graduation. Graduated from USD. That's pretty awesome. But also the trips that I've been doing over the last year that a lot of Jeeping friends of mine that have been taken to, those have influenced the locations on where I wanted to take my wife, because all those times when my wife was studying, she was not being able to join me on these trips. So I was like, you know what, when I get the chance, I want to bring my family here, and that's exactly what we did. So the plan for this video is we're going to leave San Diego, we're going to head to Yosemite. After Yosemite, on the way to Reno, we're going to stop by San Francisco, hit San Francisco up in just a day trip, and then head on out to Reno. We stay in Reno, but we really are visiting Tahoe. After Tahoe, we head down to Mammoth, visit the locations in and around Mammoth, and then head on down to Lone Pine and end our trip prior to coming all the way back to San Diego. All right, I got a plan in place. Risks are acceptable. Let's go ahead and send it. So the first stop on our trip was Yosemite, and the first stop within our Yosemite trip was the Mariposa sequoia trees. And this was a good opportunity because I had never been to the sequoia trees, so this is the first time getting to see how big these trees were. And I didn't get any video, unfortunately, but this is some pictures to show you how giant these trees were. And also, you're going to see throughout this video that my son required some tickling persuasion in order to get him to smile in a lot of his pictures, so that's what you're going to be seeing. But to get to Yosemite, you got to drive into the center of the Sierra Nevadas, because they lies pretty much there in the heart of the Sierra Nevadas. So it's a pretty long trip on into the Sierra Nevadas. But once you get there, you're surrounded by lots of water features, just some absolute gorgeous water features for you to go ahead and take pictures and just enjoy. You can even camp there, but to camp there, you got to plan way in advance and make your reservations way in advance to get there. And then after you get through all these nice beautiful water features, you can either, like I said, camp there, or you can go on out. And we chose to stay in Bass Lake, and we stayed in Bass Lake because we actually got a huge homie hookup from my friend Jason and his wife Amanda, who had a friend that was able to let us rent their house, and we just stayed in some absolutely gorgeous locations the entire time we were there. So, and just to set the scene here, especially for those who may be watching this a couple of years later, this was recorded in June of 2023 after we had record snowfalls in and around the Sierra Nevadas, especially in Mammoth. And the reason why we chose to come here to Yosemite is because we were coming towards the end of the snow melt off, and that was just going to ensure that all the water features were full and rushing. So that was another reason why we tried to come here. But if you've never been to the Yosemite Valley Basin, you're just surrounded by these beautiful cliffs of granite, and again, just waterfalls all over the place, and this just nice beautiful alpine region that really is something to see. So if you have an opportunity to come out and see Yosemite, I highly recommend you make it a part of your trip. Now, you can drive up to many of the features, but to get to most of them, you're going to have to hike at least just a little bit. But there's, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of miles of hiking trails just to really get at and see a lot of the beauty. But after we parked, our first stop after seeing some of the iconic cliffs of granite that you can see was to stop at Yosemite Falls, and that's where we're going to be showing you on this next clip of my son and my family's initial reactions as they went and visited Yosemite Falls for the first time. Come on over. For whatever reason, my son thought he had to like wild out whenever he was on video of this entire trip, but we got up here before the family, so we got a couple of video clips of the falls and looking away from the falls. But next up is my sister-in-law's and mother-in-law's initial reaction. So if you saw by my sister-in-law's reaction, it was very windy and very misty here beneath the falls. So if you stayed down here without proper attire, you could be pretty wet. So and then you can also see here by the shade, it was cold too. So we came up here, just wanted to hurry up and grab our pictures as fast as we could and then get on out of here. But wow, the pictures were beautiful, and the camera really isn't doing this justice, but it really was nice and scenic, and the water was extremely powerful, and you can almost just feel it with the wind and mist coming down. And looking at everyone's hair here, you can see how much the wind was still blowing even at the bridge here. So definitely you're going to want to pack appropriate attire if you go up to the waterfall. Now next up is my sister-in-law, and she decided she wanted to potentially go up and over this log. And so let's watch her for a little bit. Tengo cámara. Es bueno para los videos. ¿Llenado? ¿Tú? Ah, está bien, tenemos en Perú, es normal. No, mi amor, you're not going up there. So after teasing my sister-in-law for a little bit, we got back in the vehicle and started to make our way out. And we were heading out towards the Fresno exit. And along that way, there's a couple of paths to take pictures of some waterfalls. So I decided to go ahead and flex the features on my Samsung camera to get a good idea on how well the zoom works. Not only to give myself an idea, but just to see how well they would come out for the video. And I gotta say, although I'm not sponsored by Samsung, I'm pretty happy with how they came out. So next up will be our San Francisco trip, which will be very brief because we just stopped in for a trip to the Golden Gate Bridge and Alcatraz. We arrived San Francisco with 3 objectives: see the Golden Gate Bridge, eat, and visit Alcatraz. Not necessarily in that order, but Alcatraz we had reserved time, so that was kind of like our hard visit. So the first stop was seeing the Golden Gate Bridge. Upon reaching the Golden Gate Bridge Visitor Center, it gave you an opportunity to get some pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge, and this place where I'm recording the video from was a memorial to the sailors, Marines, Coasties, and also the merchant Marines of the San Francisco area for, I believe, around World War II, so that was pretty cool. And we did kind of luck out because there was no Marine there when we're getting our pictures. But next up will be Alcatraz. How was the Golden Gate Bridge?
Cool.
It was cool?
I like it.
What are we about to do right now?
Go see the people over there.
Go to Alcatraz?
Yes, I'm gonna be scared when it moves.
Are we gonna leave you? Are we gonna leave you on Alcatraz?
No.
Oh, we're not. Oh, okay. Do you want us to leave you on Alcatraz?
No.
No. Are you excited to go to Alcatraz? All right. So upon arriving the island, you come to this landing area to where you board and debark at. And when you first arrive, they sort of orient you on the different features of Alcatraz, talking to you a little bit about the past that you can see where part of it, the Native Americans took over this island and occupied it. So once you get up to the top of the hill and you make your way inside, they process you similar to they would have processed inmates when this prison was active. They showed you some of the scenery and items they would have gave them, but for us, they gave us our audio headphones to take the tour. And I'll say the audio tour was actually pretty good. It was just the right amount of time to give you a lot amount of information about Alcatraz, making you feel like you had a better understanding of it. But the cool thing about it was actually narrated by not only some of the prison guards, but also the previous prisoners to give you an idea of their perspectives on what it was like to not only be working, but to also be staying here at Alcatraz. But this area is called Gen Pop, and we're going to take a walk on over to, I believe it was D Block. And in D Block, this is where Al Capone and the original Birdman stayed. And it was kind of ironic because this is where it was supposed to be some of the most harsh conditions for the harsh prisoners, but they had the most roomiest spaces, and they had the sunset in the evening. So that was a little bit ironic, but they gave you an opportunity to actually walk into, I believe this was the hole. And you're able to walk into the hole and get an idea of what there was and really what there wasn't. And we're just finishing up the trip here, walking down Times Square. At least I'm pretty sure it's Times Square. And the reason why they call it Times Square is because of the clock at the end of the corridor here. I believe this was the only clock here where the prisoners actually stayed. And after Alcatraz, we returned on the ferry and stopped by Fisherman's Wharf to grab a quick bite to eat, and then made our way out of San Francisco. And as a Californian who doesn't live in the major cities, I guess San Diego really is the smallest of the major cities, we frequently bash Los Angeles and San Francisco, and it's easy to. But one thing that I gotta say for San Francisco is it is a beautiful city. The Golden Gate Bridge and the structures and the architecture, it really is beautiful. So if you got an opportunity to at least do a quick stop in San Francisco, at least for a day trip, I recommend you do it. Stop by Fisherman Wharf, stop by Alcatraz and the Golden Gate Bridge, and then get on out of there like we did. And then when we got on out of here, we headed straight for Reno. We had about another 4.5, 5-hour trip because we were leaving towards the end of rush hour, but it was worth the stop to go ahead and see the bridge and everything. The next morning we found ourselves in South Lake Tahoe, where we took this paddle boat from the east side to the west side. And I think next time I go and take a boat out here in Tahoe, it's going to be for the fishing. But this tour was pretty cool. It gave us a lot of good tidbits, and we obviously got to see Tahoe from the water. The couple of things that I thought was interesting from the boat ride is it told us that if you were to empty out all of Lake Tahoe onto either California, it would cover California in 14 inches of water. And if it covered Texas, it would cover Texas in 8 inches of water. What do you think? What do you think about it? How does it look to you?
I love it.
Why do you love it?
Look at the snow over there.
What is over there?
Snow.
What do you like about over there?
I can do it.
By this point on the trip, we were approaching the halfway mark, which was a turnaround and return to the other side of the lake. But this part of the lake is called Emerald Cove, and it's called that because at least when it's sunlight, the water looks green, and so that's why it got its color. But you'll see here in just a little bit, we did get some pretty good footage of this one Norwegian style home that was built by someone who had a lot of money, I think at the turn of the 19th century, and it was actually pretty cool. But here we'll see what my wife has to say about her thoughts on the trip so far. Delia, so what are you thinking of the trip so far?
I like it, I love it.
Over there, solo eso?
It's beautiful.
What are you liking about it?
The mountains and the trees and the water, the color of the water. By the way, it changed right now.
Change what?
It changed to darker color.
Yeah.
But it was like greenish, beautiful.
Yeah.
I like everything.
So this little home here on top of this small island was part of the Scandinavian home that I was telling you about. And the reason why they created a Scandinavian home out here is because the owner thought that this area looked so much like the Norwegian fjords or the Scandinavian fjords. They wanted to create a home that resembled that. So I'm going to come back and tour this place because I just remember that the boat tour was saying that some of the replicas that they created from the real things look so real that experts could not tell which was which from how well the craftsmanship was on this home. But after making our U-turn around that island, we headed towards the dock. So what'd you think of the boat ride, Chico?
I like the part when I was taking your...
When you were trying to take my hat and I was tickling you every time you tried to?
Yeah. I was like...
Did you think that it was a nice lake, a pretty nice scenic thing to look at?
Yes, I will jump in the water next time.
Oh yeah, the water might be getting warm enough to get in, without needing like a wetsuit. Well, come on over here and you can go touch the water and tell me how cold it is, okay?
I want to go there.
Go where? Oh, on the kayak?
It's a game right now.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. They got like a multi-person kayak.
Let's try it out.
You want to try it out?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not today. Not today, but we'll come back and we'll do it just where we're coming to doing the Tahoe area only trip so we can do lots more things here at Tahoe. That sounds good?
For 10,000 hours.
Whoa, 10,000 hours? That's a lot of hours. Go jet skiing out here too, huh? You want to go jet skiing?
By myself.
By yourself? You'll be getting old enough pretty soon to go by yourself.
I already know how to do by myself. I think I know.
Whoa. So Tahoe and this part of the trip in and around Mammoth were both inspired by my trips last year when I went to the Rubicon and then to McGee campsite. As a matter of fact, right now we're in the backside of McGee campsite going up and exploring some of the area just at the end of the road. And this area really is, as you're seeing, or at least I'm hoping you're seeing, that it is really scenic and beautiful. There's still quite a bit of snow on the ground, melting away, but there was still a good amount of on the ground. But at least it was giving us a nice, beautiful runoff. At least the creeks and the streams were full, and that was making the trip just extra special. So much so that I decided to go ahead and pull the drone out and do a nice little planned shot here and just see how the water flowing up the creek here just really was looking scenic. And to be honest, I'm pretty happy on how these drone shots came out. But after that, we finished up here, we headed on our way over to Crawley Lake. And if you haven't seen my previous video, I'll go ahead and put a link in the upper right where I do a little discussion on how Crawley Lake was formed, or at least the stone pillars that we're about to go see, how those were formed by a volcano something like 800,000 years ago, to where once the volcano destroyed itself and was no longer hot, the water started seeping through and creating a natural cement in these pillars that you're about to see here in a couple of clips ahead. But what I'm trying to show here in this clip as I'm coming up to this little hill is it seemed like there was a lot of people parked, but not many people were wanting to go up this hill until the Jeep did it. So once I think I saw a few people watching me go up to it, or maybe they were already planning to go up it anyways, it just seemed a little coincidental. But once people started seeing me going up here, you'll see that by the time we arrive at the Crawley Lake, there was, I think, just one person, and one person coming up behind me. But by the time that we finally left there, which wasn't that much longer, there was a good amount of people following up. But this is just showing you it was a pretty rutted hill, and the Mojave went up it pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and show it on the outbound too when we get to that point, but I don't think that the drone is really doing it justice. But you'll hear my family enjoying as we're going up. Essel's Jeep. So I want to discuss one of the things that made me pretty happy about being a YouTuber. So obviously I make these videos for anyone and everyone who wants to see them. I put my stuff out there. But I started by making these videos because my family wanted me to start making these videos. And one of the things that made me pretty happy was by the time we started getting to this point, or maybe earlier, my mother-in-law knew exactly where we were. And although she needed a little bit of assistance walking with her cane, she knew where we were and wanted to walk down to see these columns and see the view from down here. So that just made me feel pretty special that my mother-in-law remembered my video from about a year ago and wanted to walk down even though she was using her cane.
Can we go slide down on that?
Well, I guess you probably could. Mommy might not be too happy with how dirty your clothes will be. How was it? It was cold? Like really cold? I remember being my son's age, getting in just about anything as far as cold water. And so if my son's saying it's cold, it must have been cold. By this point on the trip, we were basically visiting a place, traveling the next day, visiting a place, traveling the next day. So it felt good just to be able to sit on the sand and stretch out the legs for a little bit, albeit with some cold water. But we got up and we took a look at these columns, and here's my son showing me a bird nest that they had just found. Oh, up in those nests?
Yeah!
Oh yeah.
Dad, can we go next to it now?
I don't think it goes that far, but let's take a look.
Are you going to light?
No, you know what? I don't got a light. Yeah, it stops right here.
It stops right here?
Yeah, it stops right there. Come on. See? It just goes to right there. Does it?
That way.
No. So that wrapped up the columns, and I think what we'll do from this point is go ahead and just do a short music montage on our way over to the hot springs, similar to like I did the last time I was here last May.
I want to touch the frog later.
We are not going to catch the frog later,
No, I
Chico.
want to touch. I want to touch them.
You can see the hot water now?
Yeah.
You can see the springs? Yeah, that's where we're going. It's not too big. It looks like there's actually a lot of people in it, so, but you'll at least get to feel and see how warm it is. What do you think of the hot springs?
Cool.
It's cool? Wait, is it cold or is it nice and warm for you?
Nice and warm.
Well, that's good. So after visiting the hot springs, that ended our trip in and around Mammoth, and we just headed back to our Airbnb, had dinner, and got ready to leave out the next day on our way to Lone Pine, and where Lone Pine will be the last trip of our summer vacation. So we got on the road the next morning, and we arrived at Lone Pine probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours after leaving. And relatively speaking, after all the driving we had done so far by this point, it was a pretty short drive. But we arrived and we got some lunch, and then I tried to, before we arrived, actually head over to the reward mine, but the road had been closed, partially washed out. So although I felt like I could probably go around the road closed sign and make it no problem, being that I was by myself, I decided not to do it. But so after eating lunch, we headed straight for Alabama Hills, and we decided to go to On Top of the World because as you can see, there's a theme here. I was inspired by a trip a friend of mine, Joe, took me on earlier this year. I'll go ahead and put a link in the upper right to where he took us to a couple of locations around here, and I wanted to show my family as soon as I arrived. So we'll do a very short music montage to On Top of the World to give you some good drone shots and the scenery in and around Alabama Hills on our way up to On Top of the World. I knew my wife would want to take hundreds of photos when we got up here, and that's exactly what we did. And I don't know about you all, if you have a child that does like something funny that just cracks you up, but on this trip, my son was doing like this little jig, and here, take a look. Guapo doing the little Guapo dance in front of Mount Whitney. I don't know what it was. It may be because he's my son, but seeing him do this just tickled like every cell in my body. It just was absolutely cracking me up. So after taking about another 999 more photos, we decided we were done here and we're gonna go ahead and head out. Now, like I said, the reward mine was closed, but I was thinking about maybe taking my family to Sierra Gordo. So we started heading down the hill, and I asked my mother-in-law if she was interested in seeing the mines, and she actually wanted to see this small mine that I'm about to show you in Sierra Gordo. And thank goodness we decided to stop at this smaller mine, because similar to the reward mine, that same wash that had washed out that road had also washed out the road heading to Sierra Gordo, so we were unable to go there. But thank goodness we stopped here. But after that, that pretty much ended our trip. The only thing that I wanted to do was take my mother-in-law to the Old Western Museum, because she grew up watching these, and I thought it'd be real special for her to see where they were filmed. All right, that's going to go ahead and wrap up this video. And the only kind of feedback that I'll give is I'm going to quote my mother-in-law. It was an absolute tiring trip, but with all the scenery that we saw, it was 100% worth it. So, I just kind of want to say a special congratulations to my wife, Delia. Congratulations on graduating from USD. And thank you to everyone that inspired me to bring this trip to my wife and to my family and show all these special things that you all spent time with me that I could then give to my wife. So thank you. But anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right, that's good. Gracias.